implement the United States military, the military-industrial complex, and, of course, the policies in, again, going into Iraq, going into Afghanistan, going into other countries, of course, and their crimes against those countries as it relates to the killing, the brutal raping of their men, their women, the sodomizing of their men, the raping of their women, raping of their little girls and little boys as well. So I thank Bradley Manning for being a whistleblower. And at a time that your president of the United States are encouraging federal employees to come forward to be whistleblowers, you would have thought that they would have given Bradley Manning a Nobel Peace Prize. They would have given Bradley Manning a Nobel Peace Prize, but no, they treat him like he's the worst of the worst in terms of a traitor against this country when he was doing his duty as an American and as a soldier, again, based on the Nuremberg, based on the genocide or Geneva Convention, to blow the whistle on what's been really going on under the auspices of fighting this war on terror. So, again, those are some of the stories. And if time permits, as I said before, I'm going to get into the whole issue of Al Sharpton and that $8.0 million that he owed in his taxes, along with the National Action Network, and how he was able to get what they call an OIC, a offer to compromise, and they reduced it to $2.5 million. So he missed the 2.5, man. He's missed the 2.5, and if time permits, I'm going to get into this other article on a local level that I heard some fools talking about this morning regarding your Attorney General, Doug Gansler, who is using clearly some political year 2013, 2014, pre-governor's race, politics, and hot dogging, which is more like an Oscar Mayer wiener as opposed to hot dogging right now, as you heard him with his probably coming out, his unofficial coming out. And I don't mean coming out as far as being a member of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. I don't know about that. But his unofficial coming out as far as running for governor in the state of Maryland. And now to talk about capping this whole issue of the Affordable Health Care Act, which I'm going to get into and talk about, which, again, is Obamacare by just another name. But this clearly was no more than a payout for the big insurance, big pharmaceutical companies that helped to put Obama in the White House. So Obama's job now is to look out for those who made it possible for him to ascend to the White House. And because of his ascension, and his ascension now means that he has to open up the door for them to make millions and billions of dollars off the American people by requiring those that don't have insurance to have to get insurance. But of course, it comes with a price. And many of these big corporations have received some type of, again, waiver so that they don't even have to be included in this. But to hear this message this morning, as I heard from your, again, ex-senator who wants to be in everything but a hearse, but he could jump in that one tomorrow. I think they'll be having for his former reverend over there if he want to jump in. But nevertheless, to hear that mess this morning, talking about Doug Gansler, and he and Governor O'Malley, his partner in crime, they could challenge the Affordable Health Care Act in court, as they, of course, have challenged the HBCUs and the issue of our HBCUs, historically black colleges, getting their just due and their funding based on historic underfunding by the state of Maryland. But it is Gansler who is opposing Morgan, opposing Coppin, opposing Bowie, opposing University of Maryland Eastern Shore, along with Governor Martin O'Malley, from getting their just due around the issue of the HBCU. So if he could challenge us, then why don't he challenge these big corporations, except perhaps they're funding his campaign and they funded O'Malley's campaign. And of course, the question we have to ask is, who is the head of the Insurance Commission? Who appoints that person, since it's not an elected position? That clearly is the governor, Martin O'Malley. See, this is what a useful idiot, your ex-disgraced senator who continued wants to block for the governor and block for others, will not tell you. But last I checked, I think the Injured Workers Insurance Fund, one of the persons I believe was Ralph Tyler. Before that, it was Martin O'Malley's father-in-law, Joe Caron. So the question is, why wouldn't your ex-disgraced senator tell you who is the insurance commissioner in the state of Maryland? And let's go a little bit further, since he wanted to talk about your elected officials and your elected officials not blowing the whistle and informing you regarding having forums or having hearings or town hall meetings. But let's go to the Senate and look at who is the senator over the Health, Education, and I believe it's Environmental Matters Committee. It's none other than Senator Joan Carter Conaway. It's none other than Senator Joan Carter. You know Joan Carter. Senator! You know, she liked to call in loud and proud. The same one that just got back from Vegas at that wedding of Sean Malone and Lisa Harris Jones. The same one that was just on that trip to Vegas with Stephanie Rollins, Lieutenant Anthony Brown, and others last week in Vegas. Now, if I know she's on the health committee, if I know she heads up that health committee and all of this would come under her office and come under her title as far as being the chair of that committee, and if she's listening, she can call. Don't you think her friend, the ex-Senator L.Y. or L.I. Larry Young knows that as well, man? Don't you think he knows that? Don't you think he could pick up the phone and call Joan Carter Conaway and ask Joan Carter Conaway those same questions? Except he wants to give her an out and try to make you think that it's somebody else that's responsible, as opposed to asking the questions that need to be asked regarding, again, this issue of the Affordable Health Care Act and how it will affect the citizens in the state of Maryland, man. If you're going to tell the people the information, then give them all the information. Don't give them half information or true lies, as I'm calling this show today, just true lies and manipulating you to make you think it's your other delegates and your other senators when you're talking about somebody. He said she could run for mayor if she want to run for mayor. She'd definitely be an excellent choice for a lieutenant governor. Well, can she just be an excellent choice for a state senator that sits over the Health, Education, and Environmental Committee? Can she come on and talk about that issue? Can she come on and say whether she had one hearing in her district, in that 43rd legislative district, as the senator of that district, and then talk about who's over the Health, Education, and Environmental Matters Committee in the House of Delegates? See, that's what a person who really wants you to know will tell you, in terms of those who say they doing talk radio and they giving you information without any inspiration, information without any implementation. So it's clearly somebody who's trying to manipulate you, play on your emotions, and then say, well, there's an election coming up next year, and if any of your delegates have not told you, then you need to maybe take this real serious and consider voting them out. Well, if Senator Joan Carter Conaway hadn't told you, maybe you need to look at her and begin to ask some questions, man. And I don't say that on any personal trip, but it's based on principle. If she's over that committee, then shouldn't she raise that issue? Shouldn't she raise the issue? Shouldn't she be having town hall meetings? Shouldn't she be having forums? But if you haven't heard her talk about it, then of course, or squawk about it, then perhaps her silence, as Dr. King said, there comes a time when silence is betrayal. There comes a time when silence is betrayal around this issue. But again, you're tuned to the State of the City. Let me get into this clip I wanted to share with you, as I talked about at the top of the show, regarding, again, JFK and the Executive Order 1110 that I want to get into and talk about, man, again, because this changed and altered, once again, the course of this country and, of course, the course of history after and following the death of John F. Kennedy. We had the death of course, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and many others to challenge and change the course of this country. And the generation of that time was the generation that had to endure not the age of Aquarius in terms of the age of enlightenment, but it was the age of assassinations. And many of them have yet to recover from what they saw and what they had to witness regarding the assassination of the president. Some of them still didn't want to talk about it. The assassin still don't know, based on that groupthink theory, of what really happened. And they still believe that Lee Harvey Oswald was the killer of John F. Kennedy. So it takes those who have come behind them now to do the research, listen to the elders such as Barbara D. Gregory that was there, and say, this is what's happening. You got to begin to come together and change the course of this history now, because the fight that they were fighting then, they're fighting now, but they've only accelerated the destruction of this country and the destruction of other countries and the destruction of this planet based on the economy and based on, again, stealing in terms of, again, the gold, and now introducing this fiat currency into the world's currency that threatens to implode the civilization and humanity like never before, worse than the Great Depression of 1929. But let me go to this clip talking simply about, again, JFK and the Executive Order 1110. So you listen to the State of the City. It's only about 3 minutes long. Then we're going to come back in. Open up the lines, take your thoughts, questions, comments, and if time permits, I'll get into the Al Sharpton story, as well as the story of this young baby, man, Carter Scott. And where is the enrage, outrage, and then the get engaged? But we have to engage the family, have to engage those that were involved, unfortunately, and ask the questions that need to be asked so that we can get the answers and help that family regarding, again, coming forward and talking to the police. But they don't trust the police when they see what the police do to other police. And I'm not talking about the good officers. But when they see and read about what happened to an officer like Will Torbett, how are they going to trust police officers? But can they trust their ministers and Bishop Showell and others to come forward and work to heal that family and be able to give justice to those who need justice regarding the death of a 16-month-old in the city of Baltimore? But let me go to this clip, and then we'll come back in and get into more of the state of the city. Open up the lines. Take your thoughts, questions, comments. So listen with an open heart, open ears, open mind, open soul, open spirit. This is entitled JFK Executive Order 11110 and the Warren Commission. And we'll be right back with more of the state of the city.
Now, on June 4th, 1963, President John F. Kennedy signed Executive Order 11110, which authorized the U.S. Treasury to start printing a new form of the silver certificate called the United States Note. John F. Kennedy issued $4 billion worth of this new cash money, free of debt, free of interest, and it was enough money to allow the nation to conduct its business without needing to involve the private Federal Reserve Bank. Only 5 months later, John F. Kennedy was shot by the crazed lone nut, Lee Harvey Oswald.
I didn't shoot anybody, sir. I haven't been told what I'm here for.
This is the basement floor of the Dallas City Hall, and that's where Oswald has been shot.
And as soon as Kennedy was buried, the United States notes were pulled out of circulation and destroyed, except for samples in the hands of collectors. Now, when I first proposed this linkage between the monetary system and the assassination of our world leaders, I got an email saying, well, that's nonsense. How do you know it wasn't Cuba or the Russians or whatever else?
Welcome back again. That was just a clip talking about Executive Order 1110. Let me do this. Open up the lines. Take your thoughts, questions, comments, because it said, happened yesterday, 50 years ago, 1963, but most of your mainstream news media is not going to talk about it. Most of your corporate-controlled news media is not going to talk about it. But you would think, again, those that really want you to know history and be able to beat history and not repeat history would inform the American people, black, brown, red, yellow, and white, of the significance and the importance of what took place on that particular day. So you can get in on the conversation. Also, of course, thoughts and comments on your Attorney General, Doug Gansler, and his talk about, again, putting a 5% cap on this issue of affordable health care in the state of Maryland. But again, in Cuba, they got free health care. And some of these countries that America wants you to hate, in Libya, under Muammar Gaddafi, under Colonel Gaddafi, they have free health care. And Venezuela, under the so-called dictator Hugo Chavez, free health care, free education. Your children, as soon as they graduate from college, they living back home. They got to pay for their health care. They got to pay for car insurance and all this other expensive insurance, man. So perhaps you could take a lesson. In Europe, free health care. Canada, right up the road, free health care. But not here in America, because your president, Barack Obama, is tied so heavily to these multimillionaires and billionaires. And if I get a chance over the next couple of days, I'm going to talk about Penny Pritzker, who he wants to bring in now as his new commerce secretary, tied heavily to the family that owns the Pritzker family, Hyatt Hotel, as well as his other new choice, the head, I think, the FCC. These are people who were just bundlers for him, that were bringing in millions and billions of dollars to his campaign. And now the head of the FBI, new head of the FBI they want to bring in. You used to work for George Bush. So the more things you think are changing, you see they remain the same, man. But let me open up the lines if you want to talk about the issue of the 16-month-old, Carter Scott, killed in the city of Baltimore, and your Attorney General, Doug Gansler. And one other caveat I got to throw in. Did you see the article with your mayor talking about this project that's going to bring jobs down there.